Today I just want to talk about using a book and altering a book to make it into an art journal. Why would you do this? Well, there's a couple reasons. First one would be some people feel very intimidated by buying a handmade or a store-bought art journal. Maybe not intimidated to actually buy it, but the actual opening of it, coming to these blank white pages and making art in it. So some people get very caught up in how do I get started, then okay, so you're going along and you're making your art, and what if you make something and you love it, and then you go to the next page and you decide, okay, I do like this, but what if you say, I don't love this. I've painted and it's painted now on the back side of this piece that you do like. On here you've painted something and you absolutely hate it. So you feel like, I just ruined this book because now I have something nice on one side and something I don't like on the other. Well, you can't always go back and paint over it, put gesso over it, do something different, cover it up and fix it. But for a lot of people, that's really, really hard. I see that all the time on here on YouTube, that people don't like to break into a journal and start doing stuff because they feel like, well, if I don't like what I do, then it's going to ruin the whole book. And so that can be distracting. If you use an old book and you find an old book that you like to make art in, it can be really freeing. It can change that feeling of, well, it's a store-bought sketchbook or journal. This is just a book to break into and just play in. And it's great to have it off to the side, so when you're making other types of art, you're doing mixed media piece and you have your paintbrushes and you've got paint on it, you can come to a spot in this book or any book that you're working in and you can slap down the paint that's on your brush just to get it down somewhere, and it makes a base to start making art. Altered books, it's my opinion that there's no right or wrong to do anything. Altered books, art journaling, it doesn't matter. Whatever you create and however you like it, that's great. So if you see one specific person doing it a certain way and you think, oh, I don't like to do it that way, or it doesn't resonate with me, you kind of tend to shy away from it. So a lot of times there's a lot of people on YouTube that are doing altered books. And a lot of times they go through and they get their book, and it's a brand new book that they're going to alter, and so they go through and they do the process of tearing out pages in between, pulling out pages out of the signature throughout the book to make space throughout the book, then gluing or Mod Podging their pages together and all that. I'm totally different with this. For this particular reason, this book, I'm altering the book, so I'm going to call it an altered book. I'm altering it because it's not going to be the book in its entirety like it is, where you would crack open this book and you would read it. You would read the book. Altering it because I'm going to use it as an art journal. So it's just a different thought and a different take on it, and it may resonate with a few people, so I just thought I would share. First, you have to find a book. This is an old book. It's from 1958. It's about analyzing handwriting. The reason I love this book as an art book is throughout it, it has handwriting in it. Look at these great big handwriting things in it. So when I make art over it, I'm going to love having all that handwriting stuff in the back. That's just my preference. You don't have to find this particular book. But if you want to, it's by Robert Holder. It's by Robert Holder, and it's called You Can Analyze Handwriting. So you might want to look for this, maybe on eBay or something. The other thing I love about it is it has really, really nice heavyweight pages. So I enjoy that because I want to make art on it. So it's going to have paint, it's going to have gesso at times, it's going to have maybe sprays or watercolors, and yes, they may wrinkle here and there, but this has got a really nice heavy weight. It's not, the paper in it is not thin. So I am not going to be putting two pages together. For the most part, I'm just going to be making art right in the book and right on these pages. And I'm not going to be covering up the whole page with something else or with gesso and then making my art. I'm going to just make my art right here on these pages just as they are. So I'll show you some pages that I've done in the book and what I'm talking about, and then you can decide if you want to use an old book and alter it to make it your art journal. Again, great for if you are you've got a brayer with paint on it. You can crack open the book and just brayer off that extra paint. You can paint off your extra paint off of your paintbrush. You can use your sprays that are on your mat. You can turn the book over and sop up those sprays. Just find a page that doesn't have anything on it, turn it over, and sop up that extra paint and the extra sprays so nothing gets wasted, and it just makes a mark in the book for you to come back into and then work on later. So that's what I use my art journal book, my altered book art journal for, is leftovers. Keep it off to the side for my leftovers, and then making art on top of it. So let's get started and I'll show you a few pages. Okay, here's a page where I'm just beginning to start to play, and I have used some fluid acrylics in 2 different colors and just put them on the page and taken my brush, it was damp, and just spread out the fluid acrylics. Some of it comes out to look dry brushed, some of it blends into each other, and kind of just adding some fun to the background of this page like we always do in an art journal. I love that I see the text. It's great, and because of this book being a handwriting analysis book, it's just so fun to me. I like the topic. I love that it says what a knowledge of handwriting can do for you, and then it talks about handwriting. So it doesn't bother me at all to have that text in the background. It's just kind of fun and funky. So now I'm going to add some interest and some focals to this page. And over the years I have collected a whole lot of underwater themed stamps. This was given to me in Happy Mail. I love those stamps. Those are fun. Look at this cute whale. He's Zentangled. Got that at Tuesday Morning, really inexpensively. I have the Jane Davenport mermaids. I've got a whole box here of fish and mermaids and sharks and just all kinds of underwater stuff. So I think because of the colors, I'm going to go with an underwater theme here. Okay, I decided to use the whale stamp, and I'm going to stamp him right onto the page. So it's a cling stamp, so I put it on a clear block. And I'm using Ranger Archival ink. I love it because you can do any other kind of medium over it and the ink doesn't move, but yet it's not sticky like stays on. So the proper way to prime a stamp is to take your stamp pad and to rub it in a circular motion over your stamp. Some people might say, why? Well, it puts down an even layer on your rubber, and then when you go back and you press down, the ink attaches to the ink that's on there already, and you get a super nice stamped image because you have a very even layer of ink across your stamp. So just in case you don't know that, that's priming your stamp. So I'm going to stamp this cute guy right here on my book. Find a place where it's really flat. It's kind of hard to get flatness on your book, but I'm going to do my best here and stamp him on because he'd be fun to just paint and color and doodle. Hopefully this will come out good. Cute. So I've got my whale, and then I'm going to just play with some of these other images. I'm going to stamp some things at the bottom. I think I'm going to put my mermaid onto tissue paper and Mod Podger in here, possibly. I don't know. I'm just going to play, and then and I thought I'd show you a tip on stamp cleaning. Always clean your stamps right away. Don't let that ink dry. This is a pad that is off a painting pad. You get it at your local hardware store at Lowe's or Home Depot or Ace or even Walmart. It's a paint pad with the little hairy bristles, and then it has a little ridge on the sides here, and you would snap that onto your paint pad, pick up paint, and you paint your walls with it. These are awesome for cleaning your rubber stamps. It's got the little fine bristles, and what you want to do is take your stamp cleaner. You want to get stamp cleaner that's right for the type of ink you're using, and you put a little stamp cleaner on one side of it, and then you use it to scrub off the ink on that side. And then you take it on this side to dry it. So you leave one side wet and one side with stamp cleaner, and that's how you get a really good cleaned off rubber stamp. And some inks do stain your stamps, but that's the best way. And then you can take this to your sink and rinse it and wash it off and let it air dry and use it over and over and over again. It's awesome for cleaning stamps. Okay, so I've stamped my girl, my Jane Davenport stamp, and she's not actually a mermaid, but I'm going to make her one. I stamped it onto some thick tracing paper, and I did put a little bit of gesso in the background just to mute out the words and text so that her image and her hair and stuff would show up really well. So I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge her down to the page. And my personal preference is to use matte medium instead of Mod Podge. Mod Podge is very sticky, and matte medium dries to a really nice matte finish that you can do other things over the top. And so I just prefer it. That's just my personal preference. This is a piece of a napkin. This really fun decorative napkin with all these fish. And I love this fish, so I thought I need to add that fish to my background because he's just way too cool. So I'm just using some matte medium to add a couple of fish here and there. Ooh, I love him. He is so cool. Very cool. So I'm adding some fish, and I'll come back and let you know what I do next. Okay, so I have my fish that I have used matte medium to put down. They were napkin. And then I took acrylic paint and a paintbrush, and instead of legs, I just made this into a mermaid tail with acrylic paint. And then with my brush, I made this seaweed up the page with the paint that was on my palette. And I have a little bit of paint left on my palette. So what I was talking about earlier is you want to just find a spot in your book, and you want to use up that paint by just making marks on the page so you don't have any wasted product. So I'm coming in here and I'm just using my dry brush to pick up that paint and make marks on this blank page. I don't know what that will become. When I go to it, I may make that vines of flowers. I may paint over it. I may use a stencil over it and it'll just be lines in the background. Who knows what it'll become? But I'm not wasting my little bit of paint that's still left over on my palette. I'm using it on another page. So that's what I was talking about. So you're just using up that extra product and making marks somewhere. And it doesn't have to be really specific because you're going to come back later and make that into an art journal page. But now you've got some marks on the page. It can be lines, it can be checker boxes, it can be squiggles. And now I'm about out of paint. So there's that page. And you can leave that open and let that dry and then come back and work on this some more. But I just didn't want to waste that paint that I had put down on this page or put down on my palette for making marks on this page. Hope that makes sense. Okay, for her hair, I'm going to use some Faber-Castell Pit Artist markers. They are water soluble, and so what I like about them is you can use them to color and make your marks. I'm just randomly coloring in this hair that's kind of lined out by the stamp, but I am going and making my own hair marks as well. And then you can add water with a water brush, and you can blend out that color. And once it dries, it's permanent, so you kind of have to go at it a little bit quickly with the water. It depends on what you're doing it over. I'm doing it over matte gel medium and tissue paper. They're very fun and very easy to work with, but I like the way it looks. For hair, you can use Tombow markers for this as well. I like them as well. They do the same thing. I think that the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens seem to be stay a little bit more vibrant, I believe, than the Tombows. The Tombows fade just a little bit when they dry, but I love them. I love Tombows. I like Faber-Castell. It just depends on the color that I'm looking for and the vibrancy. So I'm just going in, as you can see, and I'm just creating the shadows and depth of her hair. And I may even put in some acrylic paint. So for right now, I'm just putting in kind of a random wash of color and defining some of the lines in her hair. And you can come outside the box. So the stamp doesn't necessarily have to define that you have to stay within the stamp. I can make her hair travel outside that stamp, like it's flowing in the water. It's coming along. I like it. So I'm going to play some more with that, and I'm going to add some paint over the top as well. That's just to show you the Faber-Castell. Another thing, like, you can take a color like a teal and maybe go around this circle. See how they're really vibrant. And then just around the edge of where you just colored, blend that out. And look what you get. It's just really pretty, and it'll makes that little circle just pop right out. See? So that looks really, really nice. And I'm going to do that over here. Add in some teal. Use a water brush. Blend around it a little bit. If you want it vibrant close to the circle, then you don't touch that with water. Just do the edge farthest away and kind of drag it away from that circle, and you get a nice dark to light look. See? So I'm going to play around with this and do her flesh tones and add some more hair and do some doodles on the page, and then I'll show you Now I'm using a rose pink to come in and add just a little bit of cheek color. I used flesh tone to put a basic coat of flesh color just to color in her body and her face, and then an apricot to do highlights. And then the pink to just add in some pink in her cheeks. And a little bit of pink underneath her neck, just adding in some little shadows. But the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 are really fun for that purpose, for making her flesh tones. And the Faber-Castell Pitt pens work really well for doing things like coloring in this whale. Just bringing in some pops of color. It's a Zentangled rubber stamp, and it's already got some cool fun patterns. But this just adds some brightness and some little pops of color, and then you can come back in with your water brush and blend it. So they are fun for that purpose of adding in some color and doing some blending. Liking this. Okay, let's make this part green, because it's a Zentangle of like a leaf pattern, and then blend it out with my water brush. Makes it just look a little more softer. I'm going to put some green up here, so I'm going to just do the dark green at the bottom and nothing at the top. And then when you come back in, let me zoom in a little bit more. Come in with my water brush and blend it to the rest of it. You just kind of pull the color up to the top. You end up with it dark down here and light up there. So that's kind of fun to do. Add little pops of green down here. And do the same thing. Put in your color, then take your water brush and pull that color down and blend it out. Just kind of fun. And that's what I did with these bubbles with the blue. I went around them with the blue but didn't fill them in solid, and then brushed them out with my water brush to make them look like bubbles. Let's do that with the blue right here. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to go around the edge of the bubble with a blue. Or it's not really a bubble, but this circular pattern. And then take my water brush and blend it out. And it looks just pretty cool. It's showing the paint underneath that's on the book page, and it's showing the text still through the book page, but yet it's blending those colors out. Look at how fun that is. Fun stuff. Now I'm using a white Posca pen to just make some doodle marks on my whale. Adding in some dots and some doodles. Just kind of jazzing them up. Very fun. And then with the fish, you can come over to the fish and do little bubbles with your Posca pen on top of your acrylics. Make it look like there's bubbles coming out of his mouth. That looks cute. So I'm going to do that down here on this fish. Make some bubbles. So you're just going to come back and doing some doodling here and there. I'm going to add a highlight to this fish. Maybe go around his eye in white to make it look more. Oh yeah, look, that's perfect. Make that eye pop. So just play around and add some fun and some interest in some doodles. Then I'm going to definitely go back in with her hair, into her hair, and do some black Posca work in there. So I'm going to take a black Posca pen and come over here and add some of the shape to the hair back. Some of the hair strokes. And to where it came out here outside of the stamp, add hair strokes to that. Okay, it's really coming together. I love it. I added some pen work to her hair in black and white, some dots, some little marks on her that look like scales. I used some paint up at the top. It's supposed to look like a girl that was sitting on the beach with a lighthouse behind it, and I used this is just a Q-tip and covered it up. And now what I'm doing is going back and taking my Q-tip and I'm just adding in some dots in a different color of teal, just making some like overlapping random marks with a Q-tip just to add interest to the background. So just going in, and it's almost sort of like bubbles, but not necessarily. Just a cool something to add interest. So I just wanted to show you that, you know, use things. I have a video out about finding things around your house that make texture and shapes, and a Q-tip is great for adding in some interest and texture. I mean, look at that, what that does. It just adds something, you know. You just want to play, and this is just adding some color and shape and texture into that background. I love my brushed background, but this is just adding some interest. So that's all you want to do, is just play. I mean, that's what art journaling is just adding to it and playing and creating something fun and interesting to look at. And something I'm always big on is putting a border. I know I've talked about borders in other videos, but I'm big on borders, so I'm putting a piece of plastic behind. I'm using a cosmetic sponge, and I'm going in with some navy blue, and I'm going to put in a navy blue border that I'm just going to stamp on here with a cosmetic sponge. All around my page like that, just to border it, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so here's my completed page, and I've done a navy blue really dark border all around the edge. Some people would say, why put the border? To me, it just frames it out. I like the frame. I like how it just brings your eye into the artwork you did on the page. Don't have to, not necessary, but I like how it looks. So it's your journal, do what you want. But there's what it looks like with its spounced on paint, navy border. We've got our texture in the back, our words. We used a Jane Davenport stamp, or I used a Jane Davenport stamp, and some napkins. And a really cool stamp of this adorable Zentangled whale. It's just cute and fun. And so now, again, I've got paint left over, some navy blue paint. Find a spot in your book and use up that paint. So make marks, do whatever you want, don't waste product. Do just some random shapes with my sponge before I go wash it. And now I don't have any paint left on my palette, so it's just adding something ready for when I do my next art journal page. So with this book, what you want to do is jump around, open to any place do a layout. I don't do my altered book art journals from start to finish, front to back. I never glue pages together. As you can see, the paint made this page even more delicious, and it's just pretty and fun to look at. I date it. I do date my artwork so that you can kind of see a progression of where you go start to finish, and especially when you jump around in your book. But jump around to somewhere else, start a new layout. So find a great book that has nice pages, that's got a really good binding to it. The older books have better, thicker pages to them. Leave your text on. Don't bother doing gesso and gluing pages together. Just start filling it up like an art journal, and you're going to have a lot of fun playing in here. And then using up your leftover sprays and paints and things from other projects, throw them in on pages so that you break a page and you're ready to go now with doing some stenciling and some other things. So hope you enjoyed this, and maybe it gave you an idea of how to make an altered book art journal. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll have a description of the products that I used on this page in case you're interested in purchasing them. Any percent, anything that I get, or any donations to my PayPal me account, I donate 100% to helping people with complex regional pain syndrome and multiple sclerosis. So if you want to make a donation, they will go to wonderful causes. So thanks again for stopping by. I hope you had fun playing today in this altered book art journal. Art soothes the heart.